Go ahead. Oh, he called about it? Okay, all right, okay, all right. Morning. I'd like to call to order the Special Executive Committee meeting for Tuesday, July 9th. If we could get a roll call, please.
Mr. Lear? Mr. Washington?
Present.
Mr. Legesse? Mr. Olthoff? Mr. Hess?
Present.
Mr. Tholen? Mr. Byrne?
Present.
Ms. Weber?
Present.
Mr. Payton?
Present.
Mr. Ritter?
Present.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Present.
Ms. Haas?
Present.
Mr. Seroy? Mr. Wheeler?
Present.
We have a quorum.
Thank you. Appreciate your indulgence. The reason we have to have this meeting before the next meeting is because on July 3rd, we got or Eric Blair actually got a notification from the Department of Revenue. It was from Revenue, the people who so kindly support part of your pay. Is that, I believe, part of it? Yeah, that's part of one of the reasons we're having this. They were notifying us that his appointment was expiring, and the reappointment would not be take effect until August, when the full board would get together in August, which was like 4 days after his appointment expired. So just as a little bit of history, in 2015, we were fortunate enough to be able to appoint Eric to this position. And then in the following year, he got an offer that he almost couldn't refuse from another county. And so the board, in error in that year, reappointed him for another 4 years, which was actually invalid, if you say, because there was already the appointment for 4 years out there as far as the Department of Revenue was concerned. And I want to make sure, Eric, I'm saying that correctly, because that's the timeline is correct. There was also some compensation agreements that were part of that. Those will still be honored, but we have to reappoint him because his expires here before our August board meeting. So that's why we had to have this special meeting, or else the state will not reimburse. And you know, there may be backdating and things that could happen, but we're not going to take any chances on losing that revenue from the state. So I wanted to explain it. If there's any questions of me or from the state's attorney's office who handle part of this, or Eric, please ask them. Ask them now if there's anybody. So I think we're happy with him. I would say he does a phenomenal job. So he's back there sweating. He's like, oh, wait a minute. Yeah. Okay. So is there a motion for the reappointment? Mr. Olthoff, a second. Mrs. Peters. I guess with that, we're spending money? Let's do a roll call vote just to make sure.
Mr. Lear?
Aye.
Mr. Washington?
Aye.
Mr. Legesse?
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff? Mr. Hess?
Aye.
Mr. Byrne?
Aye.
Ms. Weber?
Aye.
Mr. Payton?
Aye.
Mr. Ritter?
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger?
Aye.
Ms. Haas? Mr. Wheeler?
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. It says here that Eric had a prepared statement that he wanted to read to. I just totally put him on the spot. He doesn't have a statement. I'm sure you could, actually. So moving on. Thank you, Eric. And people don't really realize that there are other assessors out there that says he makes them all look bad because of the way he gets his work done before everybody else does. So and that's not a joke. That's for real. They talk. He is one of the best, if not the best, in the state, and we're lucky to have him. So thank you. Appreciate it. The next item, authorization for the county board chairman to sign the 8th Amendment to the Courtview Justice Solutions Software License Maintenance and Services Agreement. You see that agreement in your packet. The negotiations for this, the contract was expiring at the end of the month, and the negotiations, we were brought in at the very end of this process. And instead of 5 years, I asked to have a 3-year agreement with a 2-year option. We are looking at the whole software solution, and we'll be establishing a group of people from the county board to work with all the departments that are working with Courtview to take a look at a potential solution, but those types of processes take a while. And so getting into a 5-year agreement didn't make a lot of sense if we'd be saddled with this agreement maybe after we have a new solution. So that negotiation concluded right after the agenda went out. And so I went ahead and put this on here as well, so I can go ahead and sign this and get this maintenance agreement. This, and if you will look at there, it is what, the 8th Amendment, I believe? 7th or 8th? 8th, okay. So in this, I mean, this is something we continually do. The fee goes up for by a few $1,000s every year for them to handle all the maintenance for the software, and it codifies how much we are charged per hour when they have to do something. Mr. Hess.
Make the motion.
Motion, Mr. Hess, second. Mr. Lear, any questions about the agreement and the intent on going forward on the computer system for the courts? Alrighty, we're spending money. That'll be a roll call vote, please.
Mr. Lear,
Aye.
Mr. Washington,
Aye.
Mr. Legess,
Aye.
Mr. Olthoff, Mr. Hess,
Aye.
Mr. Byrne,
Aye.
Ms. Weber, Mr. Payton,
Aye.
Mr. Ritter,
Aye.
Mr. Kinzinger,
Aye.
Ms. Haas, Mr. Wheeler.
Aye.
Motion carries.
Thank you. That being said, you know, I didn't ask for public comment. I think the public comment was for the next meeting, I believe. So I'd give that opportunity if anybody wanted to have public comment now, or if they want to wait till the full board meeting. Okay, with that, I'll take a motion to adjourn briefly for about 2 minutes while we switch everything over, and then we'll begin the full board meeting.
So moved.
We'll go with Mr. Olthoff, and is there a second on that one? Mr. Payton. The usuals will get their chance in a minute. All those in favor say aye. Oh,
Aye.
those opposed, same sign. Give us a few minutes. Elvis almost left the building there.